everyone, Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football. Pete Nakos, Jamie Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Friday. It's a super Friday. We got to love it. That means a visit from the shot father, Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com. Hope everybody, if knows a kid, has kids, doesn't matter. You may know a neighbor. Birthday present, graduation present, whatever. Makes great presents. Great way to improve your basketball fundamentals for those, especially that are in school or taking it seriously, whatever. He's always on the road, visiting somebody, making life better, just traveling the country, making the basketball world better, a better place to be.
Not near as pretty a view this week as what I had last week, but yeah, we're still.
But not bad.
Still grinding. Yep. Nope, we're good. It's beautiful
bad
here in Bloomington now.
It is today. It is today. I believe tomorrow a monsoon is going to arrive.
I think it's going to rain for the next week, it looks like.
We've had enough of that. But,
yep.
Yeah, oh, well. But last night I was out at the spring football game. I know that you were busy sleeping and getting your beauty rest, as you should have been. But fun night out there. There's been a lot of action on the basketball side of things all week long as the fruits of the labor of Coach DeVries and staff started to come to bear. And some pretty nice pickups, starting with Lamar Wilkerson, who was a big pickup in a couple of different ways for what it said, the message it sent, but the player that they got as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of fun.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, and they beat Kentucky on that.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing at. The videos from some of the Kentucky, especially that KSR radio and all that, prior to him making his announcement, where they were basically saying, "Oh, he went to Keeneland. He's a guaranteed lock to go to Kentucky now." And I laugh at that. It is unique, and I give them credit for that. Keeneland is a draw. It's a cool thing, but I don't think it's near as big a draw to a 19-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid as it is to, us as we get older and enjoy that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm sure it was fun and cool. First time he's probably ever been next to a horse on a track like that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to basketball and X's and O's and the NIL money and, what's going to happen with that and the overall fit. And, I do think Mark Pope is not going to have any problem over the years putting his roster together. I think his charismatic personality goes along well with his coaching ability. And I think he's a player's kind of coach, but Indiana, this is a big win for Indiana and especially a big win for Coach DeVries in his first season to beat out Kentucky, who had a really, really good first year under Coach Pope, to beat them out and get him as a recruit, I think is a big win.
Especially because he had I wouldn't say that he had the advantage because Darian DeVries had to do the same thing last year, but Mark Pope had the experience of having to do this, having to add guys, so he knows what it's like. He's been through it already successfully.
He has, and he's still doing it at the same school he did it at last year. I mean, it's a little different. Coach DeVries, I know, did it last year at West Virginia, but now he's at a new school, and so it's a little bit different. You're selling something, a year from now, he'll sell the Indiana program and community and all of that probably a little differently than he does right now. He'll know a lot more about it. Mark Pope playing at Kentucky and then now back there and having a year under his belt as a coach, he's a little more familiar, I think, with what their selling points. And I think Coach DeVries has done a good job, getting guys bought into this program. And, you can look at it both ways. Kentucky is a little more established right now than Indiana. They had a very successful first season under Coach Pope, but Indiana, you can sell players. And I've said this on your show over the years. Recruits and players all think that they're the guy that's going to be able to fix things. And people like being part of the solution. And Indiana needs a solution right now. And I think that's a pretty easy, it's not easy selling point. It's a good selling point for the coaching staff at Indiana to be able to say, we're going to rebuild this thing. Look at what it was before, and we're going to get it back to that, and you get to be a part of that. And that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And to have him talk about it, being not familiar with the situation, really not being an Indiana guy, has to be a positive for Indiana fans. But I would also advise that fans don't get all jacked up about words anyway. Just wait till you see it on the court. But it's better that it's at least that you hear that you hear an acknowledgement of and an understanding of the situation where he's going and what he's stepping into.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, the thing I took away from the press conference, one of the most important things I think I took away was the locker room was important. Like the atmosphere and the culture of the locker room is important. And I think it's extremely important. I think it's one of the biggest factors when you're going to have sustained success. That culture has to be there, and you can't luck into that. You can't luck into that just happenstance year after year. You might do it one year, but that culture is important, and I'm glad that he's putting together guys. He looks like he's been fairly picky in guys that they've offered and gone after, and they've been pretty successful at the ones they've gone after so far. It seems like so. I like that. They're building the culture, and I like that part of it.
Signorache says he always enjoys the show. Well, Signorache, we always enjoy you saying that. Appreciate you. My old Spanish teacher. Could not have gum in class.
Let's hear some Spanish. Let's hear how good a teacher he was. Let's hear some Spanish.
Señor Jaime, la chicle en la boca. Oh, menos 10 puntos, por favor.
Very nice.
I never got caught, but I know a lot of people that did. But I'll never forget that,
with
man.
Gum?
Yes, you could not have gum in the class, baby. La chicle en la boca. Oh, menos 10 puntos, por favor. See?
Wow.
Signorache, it's stuck all these years.
We were not allowed to have
I listened. I was listening.
No, you weren't.
I was listening not to get in trouble.
There you go.
But no, I'm just kidding. And so Lamar Wilkerson, first of all, he's got a certain set of skills that he brings to Indiana. But he's a guy that you want. Obviously, he was a coveted player. Kentucky wanted him, thought they had him. But he was a wanted man, and great get by Darian DeVries because he had nothing really in the cupboard as far as the team to say, hey, here's what we got. Here's what we're going to be. No, it had to be a different sell, a different pitch. Hey, here's what we'll be with you. I need you to kind of, I'm not going to say centerpiece it, but because I don't know what all he said, but he sold it, obviously. He wanted him, and he went back and flew back to see him after he had that Kentucky visit, which listening to Wilkerson talk kind of solidified his decision. But he says that he didn't want to go to Kentucky, be just another guy, yada yada. He wants to stand out, and boy, I know Indiana fans will love to see that if that's something that comes to be. All of these guys, if that is an attitude that can spread throughout. And there's a lot of people who think that because of NIL, because of this money, that the guys don't care if they win or not. And I'm like, well, I'll crap on that all day long. There may be some that don't, but the majority, they want to win. It's just natural. It's what you do. You're there to compete. You're there to win. If losing's embarrassing, so why would you not want to win? I think they all care about winning deeply, and it's going to be a new era in Bloomington, no doubt.
Yeah, and I'm going to butcher Coach Knight's saying, but he always said something along the lines of, everybody wants to win. It's the guys who have the will to put in the work to win that are successful. And it's something like that, but that's the gist of it. And yeah, Jim, you're right. They all want to win because losing sucks. Like, it's not fun. And practices are harder. Fans are meaner and students don't like you. And like, it's not fun. And so, yeah, everybody wants to win. The key, and this is what I've loved about Coach DeVries, since his press conference, was he said, we're going to put in the work. And I think that is going to be different than what it's been for the last few years. I don't think the prior staff, I think everybody thinks they work hard, but I just am not sure that they put in the amount of work that it takes to win in college basketball today. And I don't mean that as the whole staff. I just know close enough that sometimes they didn't choose working hard over other fun activities. And so, that's the thing about him that I like. And I hate to keep referencing back to the other staff because, I'm sure that they worked hard, but this is something I've liked from day one. Coach DeVries has focused and put the focus on, we're going to work, we're going to put in the work. And, we don't know what these recruits are going to be. Lamar Wilkerson might be the best player in the country next year. Might not pan out. We don't know, but he is a big piece. And you're right. Coach DeVries needed fifth, sixth, seventh player. Like, he needed to be able to say, here's my roster. If it gets down to the nitty gritty and there was a game tomorrow, I could put a team out on the floor. And that's another thing, I think, adding Wilkerson and then a couple of the other guys they've added in the last few days. Like, it's a good time. And I think they filled out the roster. They're still got some spots to fill, and they'll add some pieces to that, but I think they're sitting in a pretty good spot right now.
Oh, absolutely. And they've got more to add, like you said, specifically probably some bigger guys, some guys that I hesitate to say play down low because I don't know where the hell they're going to play. Danny Wolf didn't play down low, but
well, you need some people that are going to be able to guard big guys like that. It doesn't matter where the other big guy on the other is. Like, we got to have some guys that we got to have extra fouls. You got to put a roster together where you can bring somebody off the bench. Like a great example was Morez Johnson last year at Illinois. Like, that was a true freshman that came in. They weren't sure what they were going to get out of him, and he just played. He was so efficient and played so well and rebounded so well. They were forced to play him until his injury on his wrist came up. That's the kind of player Indiana needs. A guy that's going to be able to come in. If he plays 10 minutes, he gets you 5 rebounds. If he plays 20 minutes, he gets you 8 or 9 rebounds. Like, and he can guard the other big guy. You've got to have some of those pieces, and you got to be able to fill that. And sometimes those guys surprise you and end up working their way right into the starting lineup. And those are the pieces I think we'll be adding from now on the rest of the offseason.
I agree with you, and more of a wing type of guys in towards the paint. With this kind of offense, what kind of a big do you see Darian DeVries going after?
A rebounder, somebody that can defend and rebound. It would be great if you could get a big guy that you could kind of play through the post and was a good passer. And I think we're going to have a cutting type offense. We're going to have a lot of shooters on the floor. So someone who can look opposite, Trey Kaufman-Wren's a pretty good example of a guy who can both score, but also kick the ball around and find open shooters and that kind of thing. And I think they'll be looking for someone in that category of buying into rebounding. Rebounding is going to be a big deal, and I really think that they'll start putting pieces together that are going to help shore up the rebounding side of the basketball for Indiana.
Brian says, good morning from beautiful Orleans, Indiana, home of Indiana High School 2025 Class A Boys State Championships. Also voted best pep band, best cheerleaders, and pep block. Orleans Dogwood Festival's going on, Todd. Don't miss out.
I don't. That's a good festival. I love going down there.
Are you going down this year?
I go every year. I love it. They got food out on the street. Well, you give me food out of the street out of a truck, I'm there.
Every time, baby. Every time. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Friday. It is a beautiful one, a beautiful Good Friday. Enjoy that. Hope everyone gets to get out and spend some time with their family this weekend or whatever it is you're looking to do. You mentioned Keeneland. That means Derby's just a couple of weeks away. 2 weeks from this weekend, I think, or
is it?
Yeah, yes, it is. 2 weeks away, and then that means the Indianapolis 500 follows behind that. There's just too much going on. I think there was something else too. I even wrote it down. IU and the Indiana University Alumni Association Evansville golf outing, May 18th. That's what it was. Down at Sultan's Run. Played in that. I played in the last couple of years. Last year,
the Evansville chapter's playing in Jasper.
Yeah, it's the greater Evansville area.
Okay,
great
course. Sultan's Run. If you haven't played Sultan's Run, it is awesome.
It is. It's kind of funny. You're out in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of Jasper with cornfields surrounding you. All of a sudden, there's this pristine golf course that is just absolutely beautiful and tough, but beautiful. Walking off of 18 last year, I saw a snake slithering across the fairway. Helped him on into the bunker, and I just yelled at the guys behind me, "Don't hit it into the sand, man." Won't like what you find.
No, I saw a bunch of alligators last week. It was really fun. I was as tourist as tourist gets last week in Florida with alligators on the golf course. I acted like I'd never seen one before. Every time I saw it, it was pretty cool.
How was the game in Florida? Does being in Florida make your golf game better?
No, because all the courses are, they're in neighborhoods and they're all super tight and have water everywhere. So it doesn't help your score. I can tell you that.
I hear that, man. Hey, Purdue is quietly reloading a team as well. They added a pretty good pickup from the transfer portal to go with that core of guys that they have. But and then Illinois is losing two guys that will be first-round draft picks. Yakushonis, I kind of already expected that. I didn't realize the other dude, Will, is also – a first rounder. I'm like, man, how did they not win more? They had a Visic, Morris Johnson got hurt, but boy. And now, speaking of which, Morris Johnson over to Michigan and Dusty May and that crew as he quickly is rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is kind of fun. Like I don't love it. I don't think it's sustainable, but it's kind of fun in the last couple of off seasons, including this one, to kind of see where guys end up. I scrolled through the transfer portal the other night looking, and there was still, like, I've watched it fairly closely. Not religious about watching it, but I've watched it fairly closely, and there were still some that I had missed. Some guys that had gone different places that I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be interesting. And what you said about Illinois and why didn't they win more with two, first round draft picks and all the guys that they had, there's more to it than just throwing 5 talented guys out on the court. And,
You don't say.
Indiana, Kansas, and Illinois all proved that last year. I mean, they had some pretty
Yeah.
big payrolls and they had some very talented players. And they just didn't really pan out. And they never clicked. I shouldn't say never. They couldn't consistently click. And, there's a lot to that. And that's why I continue to say I like the message from Coach DeVries in saying I'm going to build this thing from the locker room out. They're going to have a good culture. They're going to be good locker room guys, or they're not going to play or not going to even be on the team. And I'm glad that that's a focus because it's a huge part of whether you're successful or not at that level. And I'm pretty excited to see what they continue to put together.
And he is going to do things a little differently, I believe. It's kind of, someone mentioned it earlier, but I hadn't really talked about it yet, but kind of out with the old, in with the new. I'm not sure you're going to see any carryover. And I don't mean from the coaching staff. I knew that the assistant coaches would all be gone, but there was wondering about Jordan and Calvert, and it's just been quiet enough on that front that one, if you were going to assume, would assume that maybe it's a complete changing of the guard, because you have Drew Adams, who is not probably going to be an assistant, which means he's going to have some other kind of role, but he's been with DeVries since day one. So he's obviously a part of the staff, whether that's going to be that GM type role or whatever it is. There's that. And you've got the Mike O'Bargan, that has also come in, not as an assistant coach as well. And they still have an assistant coach to name. So it looks like it's going to be a kind of a complete changeover. New, the strength and conditioning guy, he brought that guy in right off the bat as well. So, a lot of people talked about the fact that, well, and Tim, I think that, unfortunately had to do with some outside stuff, but that does suck to see that him not getting to go out on his own terms. I will say that. I hate that. Because I know from being around you guys enough, he's one of the guys, he may be the guy that all former players, not all, but most, is their kind of central point of communication.
Garl?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, it would be great. Like, a lot of people would be able to say, hey, look, you know what? I would like to go out on my own terms. Like, that's just not what happens all the time. Like, sometimes it happens and it works out that way. But this is one of those scenarios, in my opinion. I agree with the decision. I would say this straight to Tim Garl's face. I think it was time to just clean house with everybody, and, medical staff, workout staff, and I'm not saying they didn't do a good job. I'm saying the opposite. I think they've been great, especially Tim Garl. Tim Garl is, he deserves better than what is going to happen, and him getting, removed like that, that's just rough, because that dude's put in his heart and soul, and so much time people don't even know. Like, however amount of time players put into being there, times 1.5 or 2 for Tim Garl, because he always has to be there, and he's your point of contact every single day as a player, because you're hurt all the time, and if you're not hurt, you're getting your ankles taped and you're doing all these different things, and Tim does all of that and has done all of that since 1980. And so, 45 years you put into something like that, and I'm sure I have not talked to him or spoken to him since they made that decision to go a different direction. But I hope that he knows the players respected and enjoyed their time with him. Because Tim was a big part of everything and I hope he writes a book, because if there's someone who has seen it all, if there's someone who's seen it all for 45 years, it's him. And he could, I doubt he will write a book. He's just not his personality. It doesn't seem like, but that dude could tell some stories.
Yeah, there are a few people that could do so, and that would definitely be a long one. But I agree. I think that it is a cleansing, and I also agree
And I'm okay
that
with it.
it needed to be a cleansing.
Sure, I agree.
There needed to be something. I don't care if it was a cleansing, an exorcism, anything. Indiana basketball, the program needed something just to get it all out. Get it all out and start anew. And that's kind of where they are. And that's going to be a good thing. I think that the fans will love it. And it's going to be it's going to be a departure. They're going to see 3-point shots going down, Todd. They're going to see a team that probably is competitive from day one and plays hard, plays the right way. Does the things that you need to do defensively, offensively, whatever the case may be, but most importantly is constructed in a manner that can do the things that I just spoke of.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's going to be a different looking team. It's going to be a team that plays different than it has in the last several years. And, I think all of those things are welcome changes. And, the consistency, the lack of consistency in being competitive in big time games for Indiana is something that has been there for, 10 plus years. And, we're still watching videos of the watch shot and stupid stuff like that. Like, we need 10 new videos to wash those things away. And those were all great parts of Indiana basketball history, but it's time to create some new good ones. And we haven't had some good ones for a while. And, I'm just excited to see them. I mean, the off seasons sometimes are very slow. This is not going to be one of those. We get new news, it seems like, all the time. The transfer portal is going to close early next week. So we'll have some dead time after that and let these
not
guys
really, because the names are still in it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, we won't hear news of guys committing and
right,
that kind of stuff, for a little while. And so we're gonna sit on it and be able to, look at the guys that are there, and hopefully, they get in there, and as soon as they're able to get to Bloomington, they all get in there and get to work and get started. Because I think once they do that, I think it'll kind of snowball. And I do agree with you. I think they're going to be successful. Much more successful and consistent than they have been in past years right off the bat in year one.
We're going to be good. We're going to be really good. You're going to like it. We're going to do a lot of good things. We're going to do a lot of good things with the basketball. We're going to move the ball. We're going to do a lot of, you're going to like it. A lot of good things.
You got a lot of different voices going today.
That was the worst one, probably. They've added all these new pieces, Reed and Wilkerson, Miles, Connerway. What do these guys bring? Because they're all kind of something different right now. You're bringing in the different little pieces that can add here and there to what is there with Trent Sisley and Tucker DeVries. So you've got, that's a nice little core to start with. He's got some serious pieces to add. We talked about the bigs and whatnot, but man, he's got a hell of a start going.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And what can these guys bring? They all bring, a skill set that we've seen them be able to adapt in college basketball. Now, it's not been at this level, and I'm the first one that admits that. I'm not going to get too amped up, although I'm excited that these guys are signing up for playing for a coach that wants to work hard and wants to do things the right way and all of that. These guys that are signing up for that, they know it's not going to be easy. They're not just coming in here collecting checks and it's going to be, pick up basketball for the next 6 months. They're going to come in here and work. And that's been the theme and motto, I think, from Coach DeVries from day one is they're going to work and they're going to put the work in. And honestly, that's what I needed to hear. As a fan, as a former player, as someone that wants this program to get back to the success it had at one point, putting in the work is where it all starts. And I'm glad that was the focus in the initial press conference.
Absolutely. And it's someone who wants, from the coaching staff, who actually wants to get Indiana back to being Indiana. I believe that about Darian DeVries.
Agree.
I'm not looking to bash on Mike, but Mike did so in words. I think that he wanted it to happen, but he wanted it to happen in like wishing for a Christmas present from Santa Claus, as if it was just going to appear under the tree. That's just not how it works. But with Darian DeVries, he knows. We could tell. We both seen him out working the phones, at a game, doing this, doing that, getting on a plane, flying to see a recruit that just saw somebody else that has already been at your place because you won him. He's already making these efforts that you have to make now to get it done, and it's starting to win. Getting some of these commitments like Lamar Wilkerson and those that quickly followed. I thought that the Lamar Wilkerson commitment would kind of grease the rails, and boy, did it. It was almost before I could even get that out. Bam. Either Conaway committed and then Miles as well. But I expect more to come, because now they can kind of turn their focus. They had to focus on these guys for a minute. Now they can kind of turn their focus to a different direction. They could go down aisle 14 or the hardware section now and look at some guys.
Well, it is hard and more difficult when you have to fill that many different spots on a roster. When you mentioned a minute ago, and Purdue has done this over the years, they've had a core come back and they've added a piece or two each season. And that's obviously, it's just numbers. That's easier to do than to go out and have to try to sign 7 or 8 guys. And unfortunately, that's the position Coach DeVries is in. And, I think that it probably in the long run is going to work out to his benefit to be able to fill the roster with guys that he's kind of selected. Because when you come into a situation and you already have, 11 players on your roster, I don't want to say you're stuck with those guys, because they're all talented guys, but they might not fit your style, and he's getting to select those guys. So I think there's a benefit to that. Is it more work and hard work? Absolutely. And I'm sure we don't know the half of the amount of time they are spending and phone calls they're making and all the stuff that's going on. We probably missed out on, 20 recruits already for the 4 or 5 that we've got. And so, that's the nature of the business, and that's the way it goes. I mean, you see Mackenzie Mbako just signing with Texas A&M and that stuff. Like, you know what? Like, I really wish the best for Mackenzie Mbako. Like, I am not one of those fans that hopes he doesn't go somewhere else and is successful. Sometimes the fit just isn't right. And unfortunately, the fit just wasn't right for Mackenzie Mbako at Indiana, I don't feel like. And if it was, then the fit is better somewhere else right now. And I think he'll go off and have a good career. And I'm rooting for that for him and for all the guys that ended up going other places.
Justin asking, Bryson Tucker has not committed anywhere. Any chance he comes back? I'm going to say that's probably a hard no. He wouldn't have left after the conversations with Darian DeVries, had that been the case, in my opinion, unless he was taking Todd's advice and just checking his value, which is always a possibility.
Sure.
So I'm learning to never say never on some of this stuff, because maybe that is what he's doing, because he did wait. He was the last guy to put his name into the portal, which was a little shocking, because he didn't play at the end of the year. So I don't think so. I think that the fact that he did wait to do that and then had those conversations and then put his name in, that he's probably gone, in my opinion, but I'm never say never.
Yeah. And the reason why we we might second guess that is because he hasn't signed somewhere else yet. And he was a 5-star recruit. Like, he was a highly sought after player a year ago. I'm sure he has a value out there in the market. And I don't blame him for testing that. But Jim, we keep going back to this. Unless, I don't know what Coach DeVries is going to do, with the NIL money, like how you share it and how you spread it out and all that. That's the decision they get to make. But, how much more money is he going to make somewhere else? And yes, money is a factor in this anymore. It's not just, it used to always be the number one factor was, do you fit in? And now I'm going to say it's 1A and 1B. Do you fit in, and how much money can they pay you? And is it equivalent to what the market would bring for you somewhere else? And so, I don't think there's going to be a lot of places that are going to outbid Indiana. There are some, but there's not a lot. And so, that's where I'm sure Bryson Tucker is weighing the option of, what's it going to be like? As we've seen with Coach DeVries, he may, I don't know this at all, but he may not want Bryson Tucker to come back. I don't know that. He may want Bryson Tucker to come back more than anything. But, it's the kid's testing the market, and I don't blame him for that, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, Heath asking about Trey Singleton, who is a Jeffersonville player that is going to Northwestern, was not recruited by Indiana. It's a little surprisingly, to be honest with you, but I still think that would be a no, only because I'm just getting the sense from Darian DeVries that anything that went on before, I'm not touching. Anything that happened at IU before, I'm not touching. If it's a former player, I don't want to talk to him. And I don't mean this in a negative way. It's forging your own path, and forging a path that does not have any carryover, because that carryover has not been good. The last decade has been just atrocious. So why would you want to carry any of that over? Why Mike Woodson brought that staff from Archie Miller, if that didn't scream, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or I don't know. But anyway, it just seems like he wants a complete break. And I don't blame him, because maybe he wants to make sure that winning or failing, succeeding or failing is going to be on his terms and how he wants to do it.
Yeah, I think your last statement there is probably the most true in that. Look, if I'm going to be responsible for, the success of our program, it's going to be held over my head, which it should be, and it definitely will be. I want the people around me that I'm the most comfortable with, and I don't think, and I don't know this, but I don't think like they would look at a situation like a Trey Singleton of we're not going to recruit him because, the old staff did or did not recruit him, or whatever contact it may be. I don't think that plays any factor whatsoever. I think they would look at him. I think Coach Signetti put it the best a year ago, that he wants production over potential, or whatever, something like that. And that's what the portal guys can give you. Like, they can, you know what a guy is capable of. You've seen him do it at a higher level than what high school basketball is. And, that's why I'm excited about Trent Sicily. And I think, people don't talk enough about the sacrifice that Trent Sicily made, but he basically took himself out of the running, or not basically, he 100% took himself out of the running for Mr. Basketball candidate and being an Indiana All-Star and all that. He did that all to go get better. And he practiced every day against other 5-star guys. He played in games, most of their games were against other 5-star, big time recruits that are, some of them were even a year younger than them, or 2 years younger. But he played against better competition, and he did that as a sacrifice. Like, he did that so he could get better. And I recognize that. I see that, and I commend that. I think that's a smart move in the long run for him, but he definitely gave up something that, that would have been personal for him. When he's 50 years old, he would have been announced as a Mr. Basketball candidate, and he might have won Mr. Basketball. We don't know that. We can't say yes or no, but I think Coach DeVries is putting guys together that, one, there's going to be a mix of guys that already have produced at the college level, and then he's going to have the guys like Sicily that are come in that, I think Coach DeVries is going to be pleasantly surprised when he gets all of his team on the court at what Trent Sicily is going to help bring to this team. Because if Trent Sicily doesn't start on this team, that's a good sign, because that means this team has a lot of talent, because Trent Sicily would start on just about every other Big Ten team.
Nothing against Trent. He's not going to start on this team because I can see the guys that he's already bringing in.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
I don't know. I know nothing. I'll tell you that right now. I'm just saying he's bringing in a lot of talent.
He is. And Trent is a lot of talent.
He's probably a year away from starting, maybe, but the fact that you have something like that on the bench is nice to know.
It is. You are that part totally true. Here's the thing I will say to you: when you look at the talented roster that Kansas had, and Illinois had, and Indiana had last year, at the end of the year, who was starting for Indiana? Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway.
Yep.
Not the big 5 stars that everyone was excited about. We were bringing in, and not Mackenzie Mbako and those guys, like, they were not producing. And we don't know who's going to produce, but I'm going to stand on, if Trent Sicily is not a starter on this team is going to be a pretty darn good team, because Trent brings a lot of things to him. And I know he's a freshman. I get all of that, but he's played in a lot of big time basketball, especially over the last year in practice. I saw him play against, other guys that are supposed to be, the top players in the country. And he's not a slouch at all. He definitely not only holds his own, but he stood out to me.
You're no slouch yourself, sir.
I can't remember the quote from Caddyshack, but I know there's something.
I know.
You're a tremendous slouch. Don't sell yourself short. You're a tremendous slouch.
That's what it was. Oh, man, I couldn't get it out either. The great Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com. Go there. Help him out. Hey, appreciate you, my friend. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter to you and Jessica.
Enjoyed it like always. Thanks, buddy.
Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football, Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.